Recording in progress.
Let's see. Just a forewarning for those of you who are on Zoom. The district has been experiencing some internet issues today, so there's a possibility that we may lose Zoom. If that happens, just know that we're still recording our meeting, at least audibly, and it'll be posted fairly shortly after the meeting. So, but it is a possibility that we could lose Zoom. All right, we're going to start off the City of Marysville Property Exchange and additional options presented by Greg Dennis, Director of Safety, Security, and Facilities. Kick us off, Greg.
Testing. Good evening, Board and Superintendent Robbins. I'm here tonight to talk to you about, kind of remind you of what we're doing with the property exchange with the City of Marysville. And then as you requested, talk to you about some possible options that we could look at things differently than we have been based on some financial situations or whatever that has changed that's brought us here today. So the current plan, the district and the city back in May, if you recall, entered into a purchase and sale agreement at a joint meeting. I think it was May 13th. And then your agreement calls for the exchange of property of the old City Hall building, 1049 State Avenue, and this facility here, District Service Center, 4220 80th Street. The old City Hall, excuse me, the old City Hall isn't large enough to house our operation from here. And so it would require an 8,900 square foot addition. That would be front funded by the City of Marysville, but then their appraised value would increase appropriately of $4 million, which is the estimated construction costs. And then that would be able to house all of our service center staff. And then we had some appraisals done, and our appraisal came in at about 8.8 million. The city agreed, as allowed by statute, to increase our value by 10%, putting our appraised value at $9.6 million. And the city's old City Hall appraisal was at 3.828 million. And that is appraised value. There is not 10% added on top of that. And that was a benefit to the city because they've done a cost analysis of how much it would cost to buy property and build a new public works facility that they want to buy. And it's estimated at about $70 million. And so they were willing to pay a little bit more for this piece of property that suits their needs and, centrally located, and would house their operation here. So that's where that plus 10% came from on our appraised value. So that gives us a net difference between the two appraised values of almost $5.8 million. As stated, the city would fund the $4 million addition, bringing their appraised value up to $7.6 million. And at closing, the city would write the district a check for $2 million, of which we would pay our moving costs and any tenant improvements, and the rest would go into our capital projects account to be used for maintaining our schools, major projects that we're doing with our other capital projects money as well. So that is kind of the background summary of what our current plan is and what the plan that we're still moving forward with is. Do you want me to answer any questions kind of on that plan before we move on to what some of our options might be?
So I think just the only thing to, I don't want to clarify, but maybe restate, we're talking about capital funds. Capital funds need to stay in the capital budget.
Correct.
Doesn't necessarily affect our general fund per se.
Correct.
Okay.
I think I'm okay for you to move forward onto the other options, Craig.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. So one of the options I presented in an executive session a couple months ago to the board is since that original purchase and sale agreement was written, our financial position on the general fund side has changed. And so one of the topics that came up was the idea of closing schools. And Dr. Robbins had presented at a board meeting a while back, that the current schools being discussed were Cascade Elementary, Liberty Elementary, and Totem Middle School. And within our board policy 6883, one of the, also allowed by statute, but one of the things that the state asks you to look at is repurposing schools. And so we looked at, could we repurpose any of the schools we have to maybe have a district office or part of a district office located at one of our current facilities to save us some money. So if you know where Old City Hall is, again, 1049 State Avenue, it's about 2 blocks away from Totem Middle School. And so the topic came up to how could we use Totem Middle School? And so the idea of moving our executive office, finance and human resources, kind of the business side of things, to the city hall and still doing the property exchange, minus that 8,900 square foot, $4 million addition that's needed to house the rest of our operation. The folks that would be occupying that new addition space could actually be moved to Totem Middle School. And so kind of the student services side, operations side of things could be housed at Totem Middle School. And then, like I said, just keep the business side of the operation at the city hall. As you can see on the table that you have in front of you, and sorry, community, I'm not presenting it on the big screen here, but same appraised values. The big difference on option 1 is there's no need for that $4 million addition. And so that would net the district $4 million more in their capital projects account. That being said, there would be tenant improvements that would need to be done at Totem Middle School to make it more user-friendly and office environment for our student services side of the operation. So I have an estimated $750,000 in tenant improvements to build offices and upgrade mechanical systems, things like that. But that would net us just over $5 million in our capital projects account. And we would still proceed with the purchase sale agreement. The only exception would be we would remove that addition and that 8,900 square feet to house the rest of our operation. So that was kind of the option that was discussed at the executive session. I know Director Harris wasn't here at that time. And so I wanted to bring this all forward to you guys again to have this conversation and see if we want to consider other options or not. But before I move on to what our second option could look like, do I have any questions on that first option that I've presented?
So I have a bunch of questions, but maybe we hold them until you have the opportunity to present everything. That might
Okay.
make more sense. Okay.
Good for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So then the other option that's been discussed, maybe not as much, very similar in nature as far as the city taking this building, and then it's not similar anymore. We would either scrap the purchase sale agreement as a property exchange and just sell the city this piece of property. And then we would repurpose more of Totem, which would house, as previously discussed, the operational side of things, the student services side of things. But we would also bring in the executive, the superintendent, the HR and finance, the business side of the operation, probably on a different building on campus. Obviously, we have several buildings on campus that we could utilize. And with that option, because we would have more buildings that would need tenant improvements by housing the business side of the operation, the tenant improvement is estimated at about $2 million. So we would sell this property to the city at the 9.6 million agreed upon appraised value, which includes that 10% as previously discussed. We would spend $2 million in tenant improvements, and we could net approximately $7.6 million to our capital projects fund. And we would house our entire operation at Totem Middle School, and the city would proceed with selling the their property to somebody else, right? They could go out and market it and sell it. But we would still, they've really expressed how important this piece of property is, our piece of property here is to them for their operation. So without taking that away from them, we would still give them that opportunity, which is still a financial windfall for them, meaning they don't have to go out and spend $70 million to buy property and build something else. But we would repurpose our building or several of our buildings at Totem Middle School and run our whole district office operation out of it. So I know I left a lot of topics there for questions that you guys can fire away at me and I'll see what I can do to answer.
So I'm looking at the net value difference of option plan 1 and 2, and it's about 2.6 million of a net difference. I wonder though option 1, we're still we aren't losing a property per se, we're exchanging a property, so the district would still hold on to a piece of real estate, pretty valuable real estate on State Avenue. Whereas option 2, that wouldn't be the case, right? And so I think that if you're talking about the long-term net value of plan 1, could actually be greater, right, than the net value of plan 2.
Right. I think that you've covered that really good. So the net value of $2.6 million additional by going with option 2 instead of option 1. That 2.6 million in option 1, you get a $3.8 million piece of real estate out of the deal that you don't get in option 2. So, and because the tenant improvements are so much more to improve multiple buildings at Totem, that's why they're more than double, even though we wouldn't be moving twice as many people in there because it's a whole nother building or 2 buildings that are impacted by it. That's why the tenant improvement costs are estimated higher. So yeah, it's 1, you get an extra 2.6 million now. The other way, you don't get that 2.6 million now, but you have a $3.8 million piece of property. So there's about a $1.2 million delta there to be considered as part of your talking points moving forward.
I'll go. How much improvements would be needed to the city hall, the old city hall, to move in? Is there a cost, any upgrades? I heard that it was already wired and set to go and all that. So has there been any estimate as to that?
So there's a couple pieces to that right now. The siding on the building isn't the greatest. The city has agreed to re-side the building. Obviously, if they did the addition, they would do it all as a complete package, the existing building as well as the addition. If we were to go with like an option 1, they've agreed to still re-side the building because it's end of life and in need of replacement. And so they wouldn't stick that on us, so to speak. There'd be minimal improvements needed inside, which would be maybe moving a couple walls or relocating, you know, where our cubicles are going to be. But it would be minimal impact. The infrastructure is all there in place. One of the things we would have to do is our fiber hub. I'm going to try to use technology terms over here and they'll probably laugh at me, but our fiber hub is located at this facility. And so we would have to move our main fiber to City Hall. It's been determined that there's a pathway in place already between the 2 facilities. That was worked out with our technology director and their technology director, that the pathway exists. So it's really a matter of pulling the fiber. They have a data room, they have all that. So the infrastructure. So I'm estimating moving costs and tenant improvements at about 500,000 out of that $2 million that we would see on our current option. That number is also included in that $750,000 tenant improvements that you saw for the option 2 and the 2 million option 3. That all included the technology infrastructure piece, as well as whatever other tenant improvements were needed.
Thanks.
Yep.
So would the technology piece only still be 500K at Totem also? Is that what I'm understanding?
It would be probably less than that because it's already on our fiber network, because our fiber is like looped between all of our schools. And so we would just move the main hub from here to Totem, but it's already within our loop as opposed to City Hall, which is outside of our loop that would have to be added into. So it's a little more expensive to move it to City Hall than it would be to Totem.
Okay.
Well, we can, if, whether we do option 1 or option 2, couldn't we still move it to Totem?
Correct. In option 1 or option 2, it would move to Totem. In our current option, it would move to City Hall.
Gotcha.
So for option 1, I guess I have a few questions. So our current plan would have staff all together. This would split the team, so to speak. And I guess the first question I have is, are there concerns about that? Are there advantages, disadvantages to having everybody on site in one spot versus split up? That's the first question.
Okay.
So
I'll weigh in
both
and then
of
maybe
you.
Dr. Robbins, you want to pipe in on this one too. So because there are kind of two sides of the operation, the business side and the student services, not that the business side isn't an important part of the student services side, but with the exception of a couple executive directors or directors that might be housed at City Hall and their staff is housed at Totem, that could cause a logistics complication. But I think for the most part, having the two different operations wouldn't be hugely impactful. And with it being at City Hall, all under one roof, like their current plan, I mean, there's still different, excuse me, different parts of the building that people have to go to. It's just, it's one-stop shopping, right? It's Fred Meyer. Whereas now it wouldn't be, but if it was, if somebody was coming for student services, they would go to Totem Middle School. If somebody was coming, you know, primarily employees coming to HR, right? They would know to go to the old City Hall, somebody coming to meet with the executive office, or finance, would schedule an appointment through there, but I don't feel it would be a huge impact. It would just be different. And that's something I think we would adjust to fairly easily, but I'll let Dr. Robbins weigh in on that.
Thanks a lot, Greg. I agree. The thing to be mindful of is just that there are certain things that won't be able to happen anymore. Like today, we pulled in some student services personnel to participate in a meeting. That's not as easy, so to speak. So that when with proximity comes greater productivity.
Right.
The other thing to think about is just increasing just folks having to cross the street all the time. So we all know how to cross a street. However, there's something to be said for reducing the number of times that folks have to go across a busy highway.
Sure.
But other than that, we would adjust.
I guess another question I have is how much space is at Totem right now that is unused? I mean, in the current configuration, if there are still students in the building, or I guess maybe another way to ask it is how much space do you think student services would need to take up in the existing footprint?
My expectation is that student services would occupy the main hallway at Totem, which is called the Bear Hallway, where the main office is at, if you're familiar with that, on 7th Street. That's the one we also just put $3.9 million into the seismic upgrade through the OSPI grant. So that would be the building that I would utilize for student services. And if you're familiar with it and you picture coming in the reception areas on the right, and there's offices there. And then as you go down the hall, there's a library and there's 7 classrooms and some restrooms. A classroom could be repurposed for, say, our McKinney-Vento group. They would be in a classroom. Our CTE group would be in a classroom. So as you walk down the hall, it would be like, you'd go to the CTE door, you'd go to the McKinney-Vento door, you'd go to the, mental health supports or special ed. Each room would be occupied by a department. And then you would have the large library facility that maybe houses our tech department, who has a need for larger square footage because of, Chromebook carts and whatnot that come in over the summer, and all of a sudden they take up massive amounts of space that they don't take up as much during the school year. But so we could repurpose that. The other benefit of doing something at that building, that would require us to have a custodian there. And we would still be able to then support facility use. So for our gym or our cafeteria or our tennis courts or things that are used on that campus, we would have adults on site to support that. That could also be used for large gathering space for, an all staff meeting or, a large PD. We would have that where maybe the boardroom chambers at the old city hall. I think it's a little bit smaller than this, so they can't even fit as many people in there as we do here. If Dr. Robbins or one of the executive directors was hosting a training of several hundred people, it could be in the commons at the Totem or in the gym at Totem. Because we would still be working out of that facility. That if we closed it and didn't repurpose it, we'd all but kind of mothball it and not have an operation running there. And so we would also maybe not have the same facility use that we would have access to otherwise.
So, and then currently right now with kind of where we're at with current middle school enrollment,
Mhm.
how much of that space is being actively used at Totem?
So when there's space available, teachers have a way to find it.
Sure.
And
Yep.
so we have teacher spread. So like all of the Bear Hallway, the science rooms are being used, all of the Raven and Owl, which is the ones closer to Schaefer Shipman, funeral home there on that end. Those are all being used. Keep in mind, we also have the Schoolhouse Cafe that operates there. We have the Maritime program that operates as a CTE program for the high schools. And we have Open Doors that's managed by the ESD 189. That's that partnership with us and Lakewood. So all of the classrooms get used, but they're not being used every period like you would see in a school that was at full capacity or fuller capacity.
If I may add one other thing that we need to be mindful of, I'm thinking about that time, Greg, because we see students here at the service center. We service students. Every now and then we'll have a student who becomes volatile. So I remember there was an incident where, thank goodness, people were around because we had a student who just had some difficulty, and it took a lot of the executive staff just to intervene until we can get that student de-escalated. So it was good that everyone was around. The other thing to think about is, while our plan is to see students at Totem, moving a lot of the student services over there, another thing we also have to consider is just security. So we can make sure that we can intervene just in case we have that sort of a situation, because it's not a great situation. So actually, Greg, it makes me wonder if for those special cases, we continue to see them at the service center just so we can make sure there's support.
Yeah, so I think I put it in my narrative, but I did under option 2, but we have our IAES services. So anytime that a special ed student is suspended or excluded from school, we're required by law to provide services for those students to meet their IEP goals and whatnot. And so like Dr. Robbins addressed it, we've served students here upstairs in special ed in a conference room on a one-on-one or one-on-two basis. And we had up to 15 or 20 kids. I'm looking over at Dr. Chill over there at any point in time to receive those services. And so it was scheduling. So at Totem, using just the Bear Hallway for the student support services, that would open up the option of having IES services actually served in a classroom instead of a 10 by 12 conference room upstairs, and more of classroom setting. And obviously with administrators on site and other folks on site that would be able to support those as well. We've also discussed alternative learning environments, ALE programming, or alternative school type model that we don't currently have. And there's some of those kids maybe aren't special ed that require those services, but there's some of those kids that maybe would be served in a smaller environment with 6, 12 kids. I look over to Director Walker because I know her and I have had this conversation, and so we would also have classroom space available to serve those students as well, instead of just having them sit at home or doing something else they shouldn't be doing. And so we wouldn't have those options if all of us moved to City Hall. That we've been able to provide some level of service here, we would probably be able to provide a better level of service if our student services folks were housed at Totem Middle School.
I guess my follow-on question would be, it sounds like just with the space requirements, it would be challenging maybe to have those student services coexist alongside as, you know, an existing school. I mean, so for instance, right now, this year, it would be challenging for us to move those services into Totem. There's not quite enough space there to do that.
There is, they have to work the master schedule a little bit just to make space. And I think we actually, I look over at Director Walker again, I think we were, or Executive Director Walker. I think we've had the conversation about putting those IES services at Totem because there was space available. They just had to work the master schedule so that those classrooms weren't used for anything else.
So, originally in the original plan, we have a move out date, right? That we should meet for this space so that the city can move in. So, with that comes, a relatively close, move in date for us, wherever we may go. And, so 2026 we'll be here sooner rather than later, I think. So, what would you propose are the next steps in this process? So that we can kind of, if there is a ball to be rolled, that we can start rolling that ball sooner rather than later.
Sure. So just to kind of recap what you were talking about, right now that the city is intending to go out to bid for the addition in September, October. So coming up in the very near future, they would award a bid and then they would begin construction on the building with a expected closing or completion date of by the end of the school year. So end of June or middle of June, right? And at which time then our folks would be able to occupy over the course of the summer. They realize it's going to take us, you know, a few months to get everybody moved over there. The city would then have space here available to come in and start doing their tenant improvements that would be needed on this facility with an expected move-in date of them starting in January of 2026. So that's how the purchase sale agreement's written right now. Excuse me. And so as far as keeping the ball rolling, if we were to consider one of these other options, I think if we want to consider one of these other options, probably the first step would maybe be like a joint work study or however that works with the school board and city council and the mayor and superintendent to discuss these possible options. Once it was decided on a plan, we would have our attorney come back in and either amend the purchase sale agreement or modify it altogether to, if we went with option 2, where we repurposed Totem for our staff and didn't buy City Hall. That one looks significantly different than option 1 as far as an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement. And so I think once you, the board, decide what direction, or if we want to consider going a different direction, the first thing I would do is set up something with city council to keep that ball rolling. Timing wise, if they don't have to do the addition, that gives us some time to navigate what that would look like, because we would have some design done for our tenant improvements that were required at Totem. And so the minute school got out, we would bring in contractors to, you know, build the offices, do the mechanical system upgrade, things like that over the course of the summer. Still being able to probably, I mean, we just did a $4 million seismic retrofit in 2 months, which was quite impressive. We could probably accomplish building some offices and a mechanical system upgrade in a shorter time frame than that. But we would have all that ready to go the minute school got out. We would complete the construction. We would start moving in probably mid to late summer. But again, the city is not anticipating getting this space until January of 26. So there would still be a little bit of wiggle room in the calendar for them to come in and do their tenant improvements.
So just to be clear, even with the district personnel there at Totem, there would still be students at Totem as well?
Right, so the IES services is the one thing we're serving them here now out of the district office. That would continue to be housed at a district office. Because they're not allowed back in a school environment if they're suspended, right? And so this is that alternative environment that meets the needs of their IEP. And so we would house that likely at Totem in one of the classrooms that was not being used for any other purpose.
But I guess I didn't ask clearly. The kids that are currently or I guess Totem as it's currently configured as a middle school,
Mhm.
those students would be going either to Cedar Crest or the middle school. They wouldn't get to remain at
Correct.
Totem as part of
That's
that.
correct.
Okay.
Totem Middle School would no longer exist. They would go to 10th Street, Cedar Crest, or Marysville Middle School. Obviously, Marysville Middle School and Cedar Crest are the boundaries, and the 10th Street's the choice.
Thanks.
Yep.
Well, since you're all looking at me, I think, so I guess the thing that I'm thinking about here is placing this in kind of the larger context of our facilities and maybe just a broader conversation about how we're most effectively using the space that we have. And that, of course, is, I guess, part and parcel with the hard conversation of, the elementary schools that have been identified. And then I guess maybe I have a little more flexibility to say this now, but how kind of that a fuller discussion of that cost benefit of what we're doing at middle school. Because I think at least I still have some questions to be answered there. So I guess at least at this particular moment, having a fuller conversation about facilities and facility planning and what all that looks like would put this in maybe more context for me. Obviously it's nice to see a big $7.6 million number that could go to the capital fund. Always sensitive to dollars, but I'm not sure that maybe best fits the long-term needs of the district. And I think that's another piece to consider. I'd like to hope that our current funding situation is a short-term problem in the space of, a couple of years, right? Like that we've figured that piece out in a couple of years. And how we set this up, obviously, is probably a longer term fix, that is a 10-year fix as opposed to, so I guess I just want to make sure that we're thinking about, that we're not making knee-jerk decisions just based on today and what's sitting in front of us today. So.
Has there been any broader examination of whether there are other district sites or facilities that could be repurposed in a similar manner? I mean, moving like program from one site to another to fill it and then using another side. I don't have any specifics, but other than or is it just focused only on Totem?
I think I'll answer first and then maybe let Dr. Robbins weigh in there too. But the current configuration of the district would require just what you said, it would be moving a program or moving an operation, a school, whether that was with schools in a school model or something like that. We would have to look at what we have for capacity in some of those locations if we wanted to move some of or one or more of those programs. That hasn't had a deep dive into it yet. I know there's been some conversations behind the scenes of what some of those options might be or what that could look like moving forward, but that hasn't had the deep dive as much as this presentation has.
Thanks.
Director Davis, I know you just stepped in. So we've been talking about the current plan with the city hall, exchange. And then Greg went over, two additional kind of options. And so I don't know if you already know of the two different options, but,
Vaguely,
so, I think it might be in front of you, or maybe not.
that's this.
So option one, would be to forego the addition to the old city hall, and move, half of our administrators to Totem. And then that potentially would net the district 5 million in capital projects cash. And then option two would be to forego the old city hall altogether and, move all of our district office into Totem. Which would, net 7.6 million after tenant improvements are made. Kind of a short version, but just wanted to know if you had any questions. I didn't want to leave you out.
Well, that is not one that I guess knew was a option of foregoing the old city hall completely. Sorry, I'm reading.
We discussed a little bit about that, Director Davis, and those two options. If you see the net value to the district improves by $2.6 million if we forego going to City Hall. But what we're giving up in that model is the $3.8 million City Hall ownership. And so that those two numbers don't align because of the additional tenant improvements that would be needed at Totem to house the whole operation. So I just wanted to clarify kind of why those numbers were different and it wasn't netting that additional $3.8 million, is because of the tenant improvement costs.
Yeah, and as I understand it, the old city hall is actually pretty like upgraded in comparison technology wise. So I think we would be getting an upgrade moving there in a sense, getting an upgrade with our technologies and our abilities with the infrastructure.
It
Just a
does,
thought.
yeah, it does have the technology infrastructure in place. What we talked about earlier was right now Totem is currently on our network loop, for the sake of a better term. City Hall isn't, so there would be an additional cost to move our hub if we went ahead with current plan. We're estimating about $500,000 to moving costs and to get our infrastructure moved over to City Hall. Moving it to Totem would be less expensive than that because it's already part of the loop. So it would just be moving like the main switchgear and stuff, as opposed to also running that fiber cable. However, we have determined that there is a pathway in place between here and City Hall from a old agreement that was in place apparently, that would save us a little bit more than originally anticipated, which was up to $1 million. So the $500,000 certainly sounds better than that. Again, anything expended on this project would come out of capital projects, and all of the proceeds from this would go back to capital projects. So there is no general fund impact to any of the stuff we're talking about here.
So I have a quick question about option one. As it's envisioned, right, that we have moved our middle school students to the other three schools. How much space would be empty on a regular basis inside Totem? So if we have student services that kind of we're envisioning to be in one hallway, and then we have the ability to access the gym and the common space for larger events as needed, which I can see the advantage to that. But then how much empty space I'm sure people would find a use because those things happen, right? But how much empty space would there be?
So right now, the empty space would be, again, the Raven and Owl hallways, which are that building on the northwest corner closest to Schaefer Shipman. There's that long building that has exterior classroom doors on both sides of it. I think there's 16 classrooms there. Those would not be utilized. There's 4 science classrooms just to the east of that, still on 8th Street side. That's where I would anticipate housing the IES services or the ALE services in those classrooms. The Bear Hallway, which is the main hallway on 7th Street side, would house the student services folks that work there. And then we would still have the commons and the cafeteria available with, there's a music room and a choir room, band room and a choir room that wouldn't be utilized. So there's a couple standalone rooms, but as far as like a whole wing, that Raven and Owl wing on the northwest corner is the one that would be not serving a purpose at this time.
Okay.
So, sorry. I know I said this at the beginning, but for option 1, it seems like there would be more kind of security for the district in terms of future growth, because we would still, if in the future we grew as a district, there would be nothing stopping us from putting on a $4 to $6 million expansion for the old city hall, moving administrators back out of Totem. And during that downtime, we've still got use of Totem, instead of kind of mothballing, using your term, Totem. And I know I've said for a while, even before this, that I've never liked the idea of losing real estate or property for a district, even if we hold on to it for the increase in property value in the future. So personally, I between option 1 and option 2, I think if we have an outlook on the future, option 1 looks better. And that's just between 1 and 2. I'm not considering the current plan in that, but I think it's important. I think it's important to not have to sell off an asset for a temporary gain. If we don't have to, I think it's a smarter move to keep as many assets as we can as a district. So really just a comment. I don't think I have any further questions, but just more or less processing out loud.
I was gonna say, I appreciate the city's willingness and just the opportunity to kind of rethink through some of these things, given that our situation has changed since we made the original agreement with the city. So I think it makes sense to kind of take a minute and, see if we need to think about things a little bit differently. Again, I come back to kind of that broader picture of how we're using our facilities and if we're using them as efficiently as possible and how we do that. And do we kind of have that long-term plan? When I hear 2 hallways are free in theory, right? It just begs another question. I will say, if we were in a different financial situation, I think maybe housing all of our services in one spot probably would make the most sense. I do wonder if families will, I'm sure families will learn, but it probably will be a little bit confusing about, where do I go to go register my kid for school, or where do I go to, access services? I think that would be a thing that we want to think about if we end up in 2 different spots. But I do appreciate the opportunity to at least kind of revisit this and have the different options. I do think it might be helpful to have a little bit of a timeline to kind of I don't want to say forced decision making, but okay, do we really need to make a decision by the end of September or by October before the city goes out to bid? Do we need to? And I think some of that might be helpful.
Yeah, so again, the plan for the city is to put the bid on the street, probably in October now, my last conversation with them. So if we had something, most of their expenditures have already happened as far as the design and everything goes. And so whether it hits the market for bid or not, there's just some advertising costs and bid opening and some things like that that would have a minor financial impact, but the majority of what they've spent has already been spent. And keeping in mind, listening to you talk there, Director Michael, was the city's win was getting this property, right? And so getting out of their current location, which is in the floodplain, being able to repurpose or sell their property. Coming here is their win. When we talked about this being a win-win for both agencies, it is still a win-win. Their win doesn't change. Ours has some flexibility to consider these other options to determine if there's a bigger win or not available, or if we stay with the regular plan. So as far as a timeline, I would say if we it's September 4th, if we had something by the end of the month, at least that we want to have a joint meeting with city council, joint work study with city council to discuss these options and put that out for everybody to hear. If we wanted to consider going with one of the other options, if we want to stay the course, I don't think we need to do anything other than just stay the course. So I would say by the end of September, first part of October was probably the time frame we'd be looking at to regroup and partner with city and figure out what our best option is moving forward.
We use a grant given to us by the state for the seismic upgrade for Totem. If Totem isn't utilized 26, 27 and beyond, how does that affect our I guess favoritism when it comes to grants like that in the future?
So I contacted OSPI, my capital projects person that I'm working with on this project, with that exact question, because obviously this situation changed from 2 years ago when we did this seismic study, right? And I said, hey, because obviously OSPI has an oversight committee assigned to the district as well. I didn't want them to hear about it on their end. I wanted to hear about it from us. And I said, we've opened the discussion about possibly closing schools, one of which might be Totem Middle School. What would that look like as far as how this project was funded? You know, $3.9 million of state funding for this project. They wouldn't go back and undo what they've done. They wouldn't take money back from us or penalize for this. They would like to see that building repurposed in a way that would somehow serve students, whether that's through administrative or student services or housing, some of those smaller programs there. If they had any say in it, they would like to see something like that done. They haven't said what would happen if we didn't do something with that building, if we just closed it and mothballed it. I would suspect that might, and this is just me, that might be something that the state considers, you know, next time there's grant opportunities available. I don't know. We also just received a $3.6 million, you know, distressed schools grant award. That was super favorable to the district. So, but they were non-committal either way of what would happen moving forward. They would just like to see that building used for something to support students.
I don't think I have any further questions. I'm looking at the other board members here.
Go ahead.
I have one that's slightly off topic, but relevant. So how much space do we have at Cedar Crest and MMS?
Space as far as capacity, space as far as vacant classrooms. Can you clarify a little bit more what you mean?
Maybe all of the above. I mean, so technically capacity, I think that would be one question. And then again, recognizing that people find uses for spaces, but technically, I guess I'd be curious about classroom space too.
So, for those of us, that have been around the district for a while, as recently as 10 years ago, we were in the 1,100 student population for both Cedar Crest and Marysville Middle School.
Combined, right?
Each
Each.
had 1,100. I think Director Harris was at Marysville Middle School for a long time, and I think he even hit like 1,250 at one point in time. There was a large number. Cedar Crest, we've removed a couple of those portables and placed them at other locations throughout the district. So 3 portables, that would be, 9,500 kids, less than previous max occupancy, but Marysville Middle School hasn't had portables removed or anything from campus. So that I would say we would still be able to house in that 1,100 range if necessary. And we're currently at or around 700-ish. Okay.
So about 700 at both.
Yeah, I think
Cedar
Cedar Crest is a
Crest
little bit higher, 750-ish, 700. I'm kind of using last year's numbers, but yeah.
Okay.
And we have about last year, I think we were like 750, 700 and 550 for the 3 schools. We expanded 10th Street, as we know, 55 students this year. So that would have pulled from some of those schools. And then, so if we have 500 kids to distribute from Totem, 250 per location, that would put us at like 1,900 maybe. And if we consider the enrollment decline that's been discussed at several of the last board meetings, that number is probably a little bit lower than that as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I guess I was curious about that too. And then, I think there's a lot of conversations to be had about changing these options. Because the students, we have to figure out boundaries and there's just a lot of more conversations I feel like we have to have. So it's gonna be really busy to come to that decision.
Yes, there's a lot going into making that decision for sure.
Right, that's all the questions we have. We've got about 5 minutes until the regular session starts. So I appreciate it, Greg. We'll take a 5-minute break. Regular session starts at 6 o'clock.
Thanks, board.
Recording stopped. Recording stopped.
September 4th,
Recording in
twenty
progress.
24. All righty. We're going to bring this regular session to order. 6 o'clock, September 4th, 2024. First, we're going to start out with a flag salute. Director Harris, do you want to lead us off?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America and
to the republic for
which it stands,
one nation under God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Director Harris. We acknowledge the original inhabitants of this area, the Snohomish people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered, and taken care of these lands. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, their stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society. All right, now we're going to move into the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
I,
All right, motion passes. We're going to move into the superintendent's report presented by Dr. Zach Robbins, superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. President. Zach Robbins for the record, we are following all contractual agreements to place paraprofessionals. There are still some unfilled positions and we hope to fill them by next week. The district is excited to begin middle school cross country. As a former track and field coach, 3 times district champions, I'm thrilled. The district is working through several matters before we can launch, and we're working on those now. I'll keep you posted on our process to get cross country up and running. The district monitors student enrollment daily, and the official count day is Friday, September the 6th. As enrollment is finalized, we will study class size and make adjustments where necessary at all grade levels K through 12. Our preschool and elementary welcomed our youngest learners today, so it was great to see them in schools. And the district is moving into enhanced financial monitoring, which means that OSPI will assign a special administrator to work with the district on budget and finance. State Superintendent Rakedahl has not yet named the special administrator, and that is my report.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have communications and reports. So students, staff, student, and community recognition. We're going to start off with a proclamation honoring National Hispanic Heritage Month, and that's going to be presented by Dr. Courtney Hill, Executive Director of Equity and Family Engagement.
Good evening, Board of Directors, Superintendent, colleagues, and community. This evening, I actually will not be reading the proclamation. I've invited one of our amazing Hispanic liaisons, Wendy Messerina, to read it. Wendy's going to go ahead and read it in Spanish, but you should have copies in both languages so you can follow along. Without further ado, here is Wendy.
Hello, Wendy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wendy Mesarina. I'm Peruvian and I work for the district for about 17 years. And before I forget and read the proclamation, I want to make sure you know that there is a big event, the Hispanic Heritage Month, that is going to be celebrated on September 12th at the Marysville Opera House and is organized by the Marysville Tulalip Chamber of Commerce, with the support of community leaders. And I need my glasses. Ok. Proclamación honrando el Mes Nacional del Patrimonio Hispano. Considerando que el 28.7% de los estudiantes matriculados en el Distrito Escolar de Marysville son hispanos y o latinos, Y por cuanto la historia es rica en pueblos hispanos y latinos que influyen positivamente y enriquecen nuestra nación, nuestra sociedad, nuestra región, nuestro estado y nuestras escuelas. Por cuanto el Distrito Escolar de Marysville ha establecido que todos y a cada uno de los estudiantes deben ser celebrados y apreciados por las contribuciones distintas y vibrantes realizadas al compartir culturas, idiomas, ideas, creencias y valores dentro de la comunidad escolar. Y por cuanto el Distrito Escolar de Marysville reconoce los complejos factores sociales e históricos que contribuyen a las desigualdades dentro de nuestro distrito escolar. Y por cuanto el Distrito Escolar de Marysville está trabajando para desarrollar prácticas equitativas que eliminen las disparidades sistémicas y garanticen la equidad sistémica para los estudiantes, el personal y las familias con el fin de resolver las brechas de oportunidades y logros de nuestros estudiantes. Por cuanto las contribuciones de nuestros estudiantes y familias latinas e hispanas son una parte vital y vibrante de nuestro sistema de escuelas públicas. Ahora, por lo tanto, se resuelve que el Distrito Escolar de Marysville proclame el 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre del 2024 como el mes de la herencia hispana. Y se resuelve además que el Distrito Escolar de Marysville alienta encarecidamente a nuestro personal y comunidad a observar, reconocer y celebrar la cultura, herencia y contribuciones de los hispanos a nuestro país, nuestro estado, nuestras ciudades y nuestra escuela. Proclamada este día, 4 de septiembre del 2024.
If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and read it in English as well. Proclamation honoring National Hispanic Heritage Month. Whereas 28.7% of students enrolled in the Marysville School District are Hispanic and/or Latinx, and whereas history is rich with Hispanic and Latinx people who positively influence and enrich our nation, our society, our region, our state, and our schools. Whereas the Marysville School District has established that each and every student is to be celebrated and appreciated for the distinct and vibrant contributions made by sharing cultures, language, ideas, beliefs, and values within the school community. And whereas the Marysville School District acknowledges the complex societal and historical factors that contribute to inequities within our school district. And whereas the Marysville School District is working towards developing equitable practices that eliminate systemic disparities and ensure systemic equity for students, staff, and families in order to resolve the opportunity and achievement gaps of our students. Whereas the contributions of our Latinx and Hispanic students and families are a vital and vibrant part of our public school system. Now therefore be it resolved that the Marysville School District proclaims September 15th through October 15th, 2024 as Hispanic Heritage Month. And be it further resolved that the Marysville School District strongly encourages our staff and community to observe, recognize, and celebrate the culture, heritage, and contributions of Hispanics to our country, our state, our cities, and our school. Proclaim this 4th day of September 2024. Marysville School District number 25, Snohomish County, Washington. Thank you very much for reading the proclamation. All right, next up. Staff, student, and board reports, department leadership team updates presented by the DLT.
Good evening, Vonnie Walker, Executive Director of Secondary Education. I thought I'd talk a little bit about what we've been doing this week. We've been welcoming the wonderful students into our buildings and providing transition activities for them, both in a group format and in classrooms that is supporting their social and emotional health as they take those big strides, whether they're just doing their first year in a middle school or maybe starting their senior year, getting them ready for a great start to the year. Behind the scenes, quite a large number of our district staff are closely monitoring numbers, both by class and course counts. And this gives principals the information they need not only to balance class sizes, but they're also really looking for possible ways to identify savings for the whole district. So really looking out for us as a whole. Finally, the district athletics department has been working to redesign a safe and strong and inclusive program that aligns to current changes in district enrollment. So steadily taking steps forward to make sure we're ready for the year. Thank you.
Lori Knudsen, Executive Director of Elementary. School is in full swing. Like Dr. Robbins said, we have all our preschoolers and kindergartners in. It was a great day with Director Harris and Michael as we went to Grove Elementary and Kellogg Marsh as well. We had really good examples of the new instructional strategies that we've had a lot of PD on with our staff around the differentiation of the science of reading and iReady with the foundations. Just right back down to the general foundations of reading and math. And we had some really good examples of that already today.
Good evening, Dr. Courtney Hill again, Executive Director of Equity and Family Engagement. I will keep my report concise. So my team's been focused on welcoming all of our students back with open arms and ensuring that we're doing everything we can to ensure that students and families have what they need to meet with success this year. In addition to the event that Wendy shouted out when reading the proclamation, the Native American Ed team is also co-planning an event on September 12th, which is the Back to School Coastal Jam that will be at Totem Middle School. So we hope to see you at both of those events. That's it.
Thank you very much. All right, upcoming events presented by Jody Runyon, Director of Communications. Hello, Jody.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. So I'd like to point out a few things for the month of September. You've already heard about Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you, Wendy, for reading the proclamation. Also President Krebs and Dr. Hill. September is also Suicide Awareness Month and Attendance Awareness Month. It's great to kick off the school year with raising awareness about attendance and the importance of being in school every day. Couple other things I want to point out. Grandparents' Day is coming. If you're a grandparent, you know how special that can be. That's on September 8th. On September 9th, the Regional Apprenticeship Program students will return to school and kick off the program for the year. We really encourage any of our board members or community members to visit the Regional Apprenticeship Program. Just give a call ahead. I'm sure they'd love to have you. Also, and there's still some schools doing some open houses. So I want to point out MPHS is holding their open house coming up on September 10th. And the next board meeting is September 16th. And I'd like to point out that IT professionals also have a day that's coming up on September 17th. And we'd like to thank our IT professionals for their help and support. So thank you, Christian, for being here and helping us out at each of our board members and your whole team. I think that's it. There are some other things on the list, but September proves to be a busy kickoff to the school year.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Talking about IT, you reminded me, I probably should say for anybody who signed on after the work study, the district has experienced some internet issues today. And I think that we're going to be good on Zoom, but there's still a possibility that Zoom might shut down. And if that's the case, we're still going to be recording this meeting, at the very least, audio recording it, and that'll be posted on our website shortly after the meeting. So if it does shut down and you're on Zoom and you miss a portion of this, you can go back to our website and listen to the rest. All right, I'm going to move on to the hearing of business of visitors. I will read through this. All right, each individual has up to 3 minutes. Individuals wishing to combine their time must sign in on the speaker's clipboard. To combine time, parties must be present. Maximum of 2 people can combine their allotted time for a total of 6 minutes. Maximum time allotted for the hearing of business of visitors is 30 minutes. And if, I'll just say this kind of plainly, if you do have complaints or charges, please direct them to us up here at the dais. We're in a position here to take those. I would ask that you don't direct those to any of our other staff members personally. So, but we can take it. I think for the, that's our role. So direct them at us, please. I'll go ahead and, and then whenever you get up to speak, if you could just, I don't expect you to say your full address, but if you could just say you're a resident of Marysville or, you're a staff member or affiliated with the district in some way, that'd be great. All right, first on my list, I have Nancy Harvey. Hello, Nancy.
Hello. Nancy Harvey, community member and volunteer. I have some prepared remarks, but had I known that the work study session was going to be about options 1 and 2 rather than going with the plan that you had in the agreement with the city of Marysville, my prepared remarks would have been different. Any option that closes Totem is bad as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to stand here and say, go with the original plan that you had with the city of Marysville. It had public hearing. I attended it and everybody voted on it. And that's what should be happening. I'm really discouraged that the topic of the work study session was not publicized. I think it should have been. I think there would have been a lot more people here. Nowhere in this school closure plans has there been anything about what it costs to keep individual schools open or why Totem has been picked to be closed. I've stood here and told you that we have an award-winning SPED program, and so has another staff member at Totem. The other middle schools don't have that. Totem serves the majority of our Native students. And I'd like to make a correction for something that I heard during the work study. That CTE classroom is for middle school students, not high school students. It is Totem students that use it. If you need to move staff into a building that you're already closing, you have the choice of Liberty and Cascade. You do not need to kick the staff and students at Totem Middle School off the campus to move in administrative people. I'm down to 37 seconds. To everyone in this room and who's listening on Zoom, if you're there, if you haven't recently taken a drive north on State Avenue, starting at 4th Street, when you do, be sure to look to the right when you get to 7th Street. Across from Taco Bell, the once blank gray wall on the outside of our Maritime Shop building has a new mural. Not only has Totem beautified our campus, we have beautified Marysville. I'm out of time.
Thank you very much. All right, next on my list, I have Jennifer Phillips. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello, Jennifer Phillips. I live in Marysville. I'm gonna read a letter that I plan to send to OSPI. Dear Chris Reichdahl, I'm writing to express deep, growing concerns and a creeping sense of dread regarding the current state of communication between the Marysville School District, administrative executives, and the public. It has been nearly a year since the district attempted to hold a public forum where community members could meaningfully engage and have their questions addressed. The public was completely and literally shut down that night, and since all transparency and information that has come from the district is overly general, which partly got us into the situation. Since then, communication has not only deteriorated, but has become increasingly opaque. Concerned community members, including myself, have been left with no option but to file public records requests to gain access to specific budget items, communications, operations, and contracts. These requests, however, have been met with significant delays, incomplete information, or claims that no relevant information exists. Even for straightforward requests such as an itemized list or invoices from a single year's budget line item, we have encountered systematic slow responses leading to growing frustration and mistrust. Or attempt to communicate directly with department executives or directors have largely gone unanswered. Additionally, it has come to our attention that some administrators have been using their positions and work time to intimidate staff members and discredit efforts of community groups, claiming that we spread misinformation. This accusation is particularly disheartening as our ability to share accurate information is wholly dependent on the district's willingness to provide it. With the enhanced oversight of the district, as outlined in the April 29th, 2024 letter from OSPI, I'm seeking your guidance on whether the appointed special administrator has authority to hold public forums where our questions can be directly addressed. Specifically, the letter mentioned a joint FOC and board meeting to help answer the public's questions regarding the budget. Can a special administrator facilitate such a meeting? Our last resort is to pursue legal action against the district for not following Public Records Act processes, a step that no one in our community wishes to take. However, the district's continued transparency leaves us with few alternatives. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up, I have Jay Human.
My name is Jay Human. I am a parent of a student and a community member. I also lead the Marysville Community Coalition. I am here today because I am over watching our school board evade responsibility while our district crumbles. OSPI has been more than generous, providing MSD with clear instructions, extended deadlines, and free expert consultations, paid for by OSPI and Northwest ESD, all in an effort to guide us out of this financial disaster. Yet, despite extensive support, MSD has repeatedly failed to deliver. Let's be blunt. MSD was required to submit a budget by April 15th, and when they did, it was full of glaring issues. OSPI could have moved forward, but instead, they extended the deadline. Even after the revised budget was submitted, it still raised serious concerns. The Financial Oversight Committee then stepped in, and despite even more time and resources, they had to recommend enhanced oversight. How many chances does this school district need before it gets its act together? Now OSPI has taken the reins, appointing a special administrator to clean up this mess. And what is the decision met with? Complaints that they didn't come in earlier, snarky comments about how much this is now going to cost our district, and painting a picture that MSD is a victim in this and should have been given more time. Is that the leadership example you want to be for our kids? The fact is, our district has been given every opportunity to turn things around, and it's clear that the current leadership has failed. OSPI's intervention is not just necessary, it's long overdue. We can no longer afford to keep repeating the same mistakes, hoping for a different outcome. The time for excuses is over. Oh, I also spoke with OSPI, and they have no intention of charging a financially strapped school district with the cost of the special administrator. To the board, I say this: it's time to face the facts. I understand that some of you entered into this during various times of the debacle, but what's clear is that past and current board member inaction and poor decisions have led us here. Instead of whining about OSPI's involvement, you should be thanking them for doing the job that hasn't been done by the board or the district. It's time to take responsibility, enforce accountability, and finally make the changes our district desperately needs. Enough is enough. This community deserves better. And it's time to stop pretending that everything will be okay if we just keep doing what we've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, next up on my list, I have Amy Hill. Hello, Amy. All right. 6 minutes.
Good evening, board and members of the community. I'm Amy Hill, community member, Marysville Community Coalition. I stand before you today to address a matter of critical importance to our school district and our community. Accountability, transparency, these values are not just buzzwords. They are the bedrock of good governance and the foundation upon which trust is built between the board, the administration, and the people they serve. In the wake of the recall petition against Wade and Connor, significant changes have occurred. With Wade's resignation on the same day of the petition was announced, Jay Human and I made the decision to pause the effort against Connor. We believe it was important to give him the opportunity to step in the role of interim president, unburden the previous president's influence, and see just how he would lead. To this end, we reached out for meetings with Director Krebs on June 22nd and July 14th. We sat down together over several hours. We listened to one another and outlined the changes we hope to see. These changes were not radical or unreasonable. They were steps both parties actually believed were necessary to restore trust and integrity in the board's actions. With this came some positive progress. The implementation of the Google Docs form, awesome. The increase of questioning from the board, great. And of course, the attendance of board members at our forums, that we thank you for, really. But there are some crucial items that we have suggested that have not seen the light of day. One, a deliberate approach to decision-making. We requested that there be at least one board session between presentation and board action. This has been inconsistent at best. For example, July 22nd, funds were approved to be spent. Funds were approved to be spent in partnership with Whitworth University as part of the HiCap program, despite parents in the HiCap community voicing concerns for nearly a year that the immediate board actions following Brandon's presentations are unfair and not allowed for proper community input. This goes for all actions. Number two, adherence to the state certification requirements. Most importantly, we asked the board to publicly reverse the decision that allowed the superintendent to continue his role without a Washington State superintendent certificate, which is a minimum requirement for the job per Marysville School District Board policy and has been since 2005. When questioned by a labor leader, the administration responded that they had quietly changed the job requirement to exclude this certification without board approval. This lacks transparency and is unacceptable, and no public statement has been made. Nothing, even though news outlets have even picked this point up. If we have personnel in positions that do not meet standards for those positions, as a district, we should not lower our standards to allow people to fit it. We should want the best qualified personnel for those positions. 3, restrictions on the superintendent's role. We had asked that the superintendent be excluded from any decisions regarding hiring, which was not done. Additionally, we requested that the superintendent be removed from overseeing technology department during his open investigation against him. Number 4, new committees. We've asked the board to open the door to create a new solid committees. The community has been requesting to be involved in the board's decision-making progress. We want to help. Then allow these committees to give updates at board meetings for the public to hear. True transparency. As you all say, let's collaborate. These requests are not excessive. They're not unreasonable. They are within the board's power to implement, and they align with existing policies. They reflect a desire to see our school districts governed by integrity and accountability, principles that should not be negotiable. As we move forward, I must ask this of the board. What examples do you want to set for our children? What messages do you want to send to the community that depends on you to act in their best interest? We gave Director Krebs until July 22nd to step towards fulfilling these requests. Since our initial meeting on June 22nd, several board meetings have taken place, yet we have seen little movement on these critical issues. Today, we're here to give one more chance and state it publicly that you guys have till October 8th, 2024, 2 additional board meetings to take some meaningful action. If by this time we do not see progress on the reasonable, necessary steps, you will leave the community no option but to resume the recall effort. And I'm going to tell you, this does not come from my mouth lightly, because actually I'm very disappointed that I'm even standing up here right now to say this. This is not about any one individual. It is about the values of transparency, accountability, and responsibility to our community. There are standards we must uphold so that Marysville School District does not end up in this situation ever again, not only for ourselves, but for the generations to come. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right, next up on my list, I have Mike Hoogan.
Hogan.
Gosh,
She came close every time,
no,
everything.
you have to remind me next.
Hi,
time.
this is Mike Hogan. I'm from the Marysville area. I live in North Marysville. I've got some familiarity with the Edgenuity program, and I understand that we're adopting some new parts of that Edgenuity program tonight through a vote. I know that it's going to cost about between $40,000 and $45,000. It was used during the Marysville Online program for a long time, and it was really successful. At that time, though, those were staff, student FTE, and I believe it was mostly covered through that FTE. I'm not sure what this program is about because they've cut that Marysville Online program where 150 students plus or minus were lost to other programs and other districts. So there's FTE lost there when they cut that program, using that program. At this point, the Letter of Financial Oversight Committee of August 28th recommended against any new curriculum being purchased until the binding agreements and now the enhanced binding conditions or financial conditions have been ratified or have been removed. Also, I believe that there's no new renewal of contract agreements with vendors more than $25,000 without prior approval of the Financial Oversight Committee and Special Administrator. Is this program being used for credit retrieval? If that's the case, couldn't summer school be used? And if summer school is used, rather than a cost deficit to the school district, possibly having students pay for that situation, that system, like a pay for play. I know that some people in pay for play for sports, if they are a financial hardship, there are mitigating circumstances that they can go through to have those covered through McKinney-Vento or other programs, or even grants that could be applied for. But I really find it hard as a taxpayer. I'm a teacher, and I always think, wow, summer school's free for students that didn't pass for some reasons, could be economic, but some reasons because they feel that summer school is a little easier. It's shorter. It's much shorter and it's not as rigorous. It's not a complete program. I would say possibly looking at this a little closer and tabling the vote today to a future time when this could be looked at, and possibly pay for play. Some mitigating costs could be picked up by those students that need that time, because in some situations, maybe they didn't put a lot of effort into what they did during regular school. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next up, I have Travis Marsh.
Good evening, Travis Marsh, Marysville Coaching Association President. Once again, tonight I come to you today with these frustration and disappointment and just plain weariness of constantly fighting battles that are completely unnecessary. Here are a few of the facts. The Marysville Coaching Association is now working out of contract. Our contract ended with Marysville School District on August 31st. We attempted all spring and summer to get a new contract done, and were continually put off until 2 weeks prior to the contract ending. All of our fall coaches are currently working without a contract and doing so for the betterment of our student athletes. Technically, they should be ceasing all work until a contract is reached. When are we going to be working with a contract? We have agreed to a tentative contract, but have been waiting for 2 weeks to meet with HR to finalize wording so that we can bring it to the MCA membership for ratification. Every attempt at communication with HR has gone without a single response. We've heard nothing, and yet here we are still working. We have 2 new athletic oversight people working without job descriptions since we let go of the position of athletic coordinator at both schools. Job postings have been delayed and sitting on desks for approval for weeks. The MPJV girls volleyball job wasn't posted until 5 days before the season started. Numerous people all tried for weeks to get this posted, and it wasn't until the MP Booster Club met and started organizing to volunteer coach the 16 JV girls that it finally got posted. Middle school cross country starts Monday, as you heard, and the district hasn't even posted the jobs for the coaches yet. Okay, we all knew all summer that these jobs were going to need to be posted and filled, and they're not. And it starts in 5 days. That's going to delay the opening of cross country, and we're now going to have to tell the leagues that we're not going to be able to fulfill the matches that we already signed up for the cross country meets. Communication transparency continues beyond challenging. Just last Friday, the district finally put out communication to the community that we are not doing any middle school winter sports, and that we're combining Totem and Marysville Middle School for cross country and track. We all knew this since the beginning of August. The excuse given to me from the district personnel was that Miss Runyon was on vacation and she'd do it when she got back, but that was over 2 weeks ago. We literally had families getting sports physicals, paying for sports physicals, and signing up their children to play basketball, volleyball, and wrestling for middle school last week. Signing up last week. And the whole time we knew we weren't going to offer these sports, even though we've been telling everyone since spring that we would. None of this creates confidence in how this district is being run. In fact, it just continues and continues to demonstrate the lack of leadership and incompetence that is happening on a daily basis. We've all told you, as a board, we've all told you, as a teacher, as a coach, and a leader in this district for 26 years, I've told you, and it is beyond obvious, no one's listening. This is not an OSBI problem. This is not a past leadership problem. This is a now problem, and if the board continues to refuse to hold people accountable for not doing their job, then the buck stops with you. Let's show our students how to take responsibility for our actions, or in this case, our inactions. As my father always said, you are either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. There is no in between. So my question to you, board, where are you?
Thank you very much. Right, next up, I have Chris Davis. Hello, Chris.
This is going to sound a bit like a commercial following all the advocacy there, but the, oh, see, pull this up. The Washington Institute for Parent Leadership and Advocacy training program, which I went through during the COVID for years, and a large part of the reason why I'm such a pain in the butt. They have a class starting October 5th. They have classes both in English and Spanish. Please sign up if you're interested at wafamilyengagement.org/IPLA. Back to the advocacy thing. Some students at the Getchell Film Production Program, they love the tech department. They appreciate all of the email feedback, things like that, but they've been waiting on their film production stuff since March. They keep getting it in piecemeal. They just got their motion cap suit and the computer, no monitor, no software, no internet connection, none of that stuff. Please help them. And then also back to the work study thing, the CTE and maritime programs. Those are currently housed by Tulalip students. Is there an option to keep those programs going if Totem closes as a school, so that you can still utilize the kitchen and the culinary arts program and the maritime boat building program, which is huge for these students? Please don't get rid of that. Also, things that we shouldn't get rid of that have direct student impact, credit retrieval. That is one of those things that we should be willing to fight OSPI on tooth and nail, just like teacher impacts, paras, all that. Now, circling back around, please stop making the advocacy in Olympia more difficult. We need to take responsibility for our parts in the present situation. By just pointing fingers at the state, saying that the state isn't funding things adequately, we look like jerks because we're not taking care of our own business in-house. We need to address that problem, start fixing things ourselves, so that then the state can accurately view the situation in Marysville and apply a fix across the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, Preston. You told me not to say your last name. So.
Waskin. Good evening, board, superintendent, public. I'm here this evening because I don't know if you all saw the news today. You remember what happened 6 years ago in this district? I don't know how many of you have a parent or a student or in here. We had that major shooting. I want to have a discussion with you this evening. I know that you do not have your finance director here, but I'm going to pose a question to the superintendent. If he doesn't know, he can get back to me. What are we doing to keep our kids safe so nothing happens again? We only have 2 school resource officers in this district. Did you hear that today it was 2 school resource officers that took the shooter down? They are lifesavers. I know that we don't have a budget to put them back in, and I know the city got involved to get them in here. But as you go along, our kids' safety is number one, shouldn't be, as we move forward. We're keeping them safe in our schools everywhere. My concern is if we don't address it, it's going to happen again. And it's going to happen again from the outside because we do not have locks on these buildings to keep them out, especially at the lower level. So I'm not here demanding something. I'm here to put a question in your mind as you move forward, as you move into next year, as you work with OSPI to create a budget. Safety should be your number one priority when you create a budget, because we are here to give an education. We are not here to make sure they're not safe. Kids should come to school, feel safe, not know someone's going to come in and ruin their education. 180 days is the law for them to go. But if they're scared one day, who knows if they're going to go 75 days? So, Dr. Superintendent Robinson, my question to you tonight is, as superintendent, what are you doing to make sure all students are safe and all grade levels, including special ed, to make sure they can have an education and not have to worry about somebody to go in and be somewhere like that? If you can answer it, you can. Otherwise, I'd like to get an answer after you can consult with whoever you need to. But my message to you tonight is keep your kids safe in your district. I'm a former district who graduated in 2010, and I don't care that I graduated there. I'm still fighting to make sure they're still safe today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Preston. On on the sheet. I don't have your email address, so if you're able to write it down somewhere and make sure that we get it. Alrighty, next up on the list, I have Amy Sheldon.
Good evening. I signed up because I thought my dad wanted to talk, but so anyways, he wants to be quiet because this is how he shows his frustration. So I am here to bring some positivity to everyone. And you know, I'm always the one that comes here and says, like, we need to be supporting others, and it never happens. And I think everyone needs to come together and support our kids. Like, here I am sending out, I just sent it to Alicia, support our Getchell football team. I'm sending out little things, buy the gold cards, like support the C teams. Like, this is what I do. And you guys know I don't have spare time. Like, this is what I do. But we need to be supporting our kids, like coming together, support our youth, because they are our future. And on another note, like, let's talk about the good things that are happening. I've worked for 2 years to get unified champion schools in our schools. I want to see people step up and say, "Hi, I want to help." Like, let's publicize this. This is a big deal. I've been busting my butt all week, like doing 2 years in the evenings, doing meetings. And now Getchell is a unified champion school. Today we had unified drumming at our school. I know Mr. Marsh saw it. It was amazing. It's beautiful. There's amazing things that can happen. I think it's great if we can see people come out and support these great things. Support our kids. Put our kids first. That's important. Be seen in the community. If I can find the time, and I'm a mom and I'm a caregiver and I work, I know we can all find time. Because here he is. And I'm his caregiver, and I thought he wanted to talk, so here I am. But he doesn't want to talk. So just wanted to say those great things. Spread the news about great things happening in our schools. And we can all come together and make more great things happen. So that's all I wanted to say. But credit retrieval is important because I do summer school and I know how much it matters to our kids. And once they get in that rut, we have to change the mindset to help them get caught up. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. All right, that's going to conclude our public hearing. Next up, approval of the minutes. Is there a motion for the minutes?
I move to approve the regular session and executive session meeting minutes of July 30th, 2024 as presented.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, consent agenda. You have a motion on the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Beecha.
All right, any discussion?
Yes. Just want to clarify for people, because I know a couple people talked to me about this before on the hires being approved. I asked about those and the lunch assistants, the coaches that were approved. Those things were, since they were done before the actual oversight was done, those are fine. It's the coaches, obviously, as Travis knows, is a safety issue to have those people out there. So that kind of supersedes that. I asked about the CTE hire because I saw, hey, you know, it says from the OSPI, we can't hire people, non-contract or non-certificated people. CTE is paid with grant money, so it doesn't come from the BEA. So that lets us have that CTE coordinator or whatever. So those positions are taken care of. So just wanted to clarify that for people, that those positions are not affected by that. And so that we are going by what OSPI has directed us, and that we are aware of that. So just want to let you know.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, board action number 1, and WESD 199 contract for student assistant professional. This is going to be presented by Sandra Madrigal, Administrative Coordinator of Student Services.
Good evening, Board of Directors and Dr. Robbins. I am going to go over the situation report. So I wanted to give you guys just the background pieces of this. The purpose of this contract is in partnership with the Northwest ESD and the Marysville School District. It is a continuation of the student assistant professional that provides drug and alcohol prevention services for Marysville Getchell. And the next topic I would like to discuss is the budget. So the district shall pay nothing more than $25,000 for this. And so what happens is this is for the performance of all things underneath their responsibilities under responsibilities of Northwest ESD. I would like to kind of point out the strategic goal here, but I'd also like to say that it aligns with our values, but also the strategic goals. So it aligns with our values, which are really important, specifically that it is student-centered and it contributes to helping students build resilience through prevention of drugs and alcohol. This aligns with our strategic goals, specifically around relationships and systems and structures. I also want to highlight this is a partnership and it's in connection with Uniting Stories, which is our Marysville Tulalip CPWI coalition. Our relationships with the Northwest ESD and Marysville Tulalip CPWI coalition contribute resources that help grow and promote healthy working relationships with our students, staff, and the community. The partnership helps build systems and structures of prevention for our students and families. And in closing, the recommendation would be to continue to approve the SAP position through our partnership with MSD and Northwest ESD. So in closing, I'd like to say I move to approve the Northwest Educational Service District contract number 2425208004 to continue to provide an SAP for Marysville Getchell in partnership with Marysville School District for the 2024-25 school year.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to open up discussion?
I move to approve the Northwest Educational Services District contract number 2425208004 to continue to provide an SAP for Marysville Getchell in partnership with Marysville School District for the 24-25 school year.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
I have one question and one comment. Question is, you said it costs up to $25,000. What determines what the final cost will be? Is it for services used, or is it, how does that final total arrived at?
I'm not exactly sure how we arrive at it. It's just that we don't exceed the 25,000 is what's in the contract.
And my comment is, as a former health teacher, among my other subjects I taught, seeing as how the health curriculum in Marysville has been chopped and chopped and chopped and chopped until it's basically nothing anymore. This is a very highly needed and a beneficial program that I think that our kids need. I would like to see us get back to a full health curriculum like we used to teach, rather than just have it as an afterthought on Friday in some cases for PE classes. So I think this is no brainer here.
Yeah, thanks. I agree.
Well, I would just like to say that I agree with Greg that this is a no-brainer. There's literally an opiate epidemic out there. I know a former Marysville School District student that I think could have benefited greatly from services like this that overdosed in this June or May. He was my son's age, and that unfortunately he didn't have these opportunities. He was a standout athlete that did amazing things, great sense of humor, and unfortunately got caught up into addiction as a young man in 9th grade, 10th grade, and he's gone now. So I think having these opportunities for kids, whether it's intervention or prevention, and taking care of those needs is important. So that's my comment.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think not much more that can be said, but I think for me, it's especially for situations like this, it's always better to be proactive rather than reactive. And so being able to get ahead of it with training and mentorship. I mean, it speaks to that. I mean, you were talking about coaches being a safety aspect, and I think that this is one of those things too that almost solely benefits our students and the health of our students and health and well-being of our students. So again, Craig said no brainer, and I think I would agree. I don't have any further comments. Any other comments from the board? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up,
Pick it over everywhere.
number 2, College Success Foundation MOU and Data Sharing Agreement presented by Vonnie Walker, Executive Director of Secondary Schools. Hello, Vonnie.
Hello, good evening, Dr. Robbins and board. I bring before you today 2 items. The first one is an ongoing partnership that we have. It's a grant that we get from the College Success Foundation. They work specifically with Marysville-Pilchuck High School. And as recipients of that grant, we have 2 staff members. Well, they're not Marysville staff members, but they provide us with 2 people that are deeply engaged in that high school and beyond planning processes, bringing career days, advertising for times to go to colleges, and really helping kids to have access to tools and supports they need to not only plan for, but visit and experience what they might be able to get into post high school. So this is, again, this is the 7th year of that partnership. They are lucky to be able to continue to get this grant, and our students benefit from these services. So I ask that that you approve the MOU, which includes a data sharing agreement so that they can contact and send these informational pieces to these students between the Marysville School District and the College Success Foundation.
All right, thank you very much. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the MOU and data sharing agreement between the Marysville School District and the College Success Foundation.
Second.
All right, motion and a second discussion.
I'm curious about a couple of things. How many advisors are there, and how do our students get assigned to be provided these services? As freshmen, just curious about the way that it works.
So there are 2 advisors, and to the best of my knowledge, they're not directly assigned to a particular student. So both of these advisors work on activities that maybe center on the freshmen and sophomores and their needs, and then those juniors and seniors and their needs. I know that I asked them for some specifics so that you could see, and in true form, they do make everything very reader friendly, exciting to get their hands on. This is just how they present things. They know that they want to get students excited and jazzed. So I don't believe that there is a direct assignment like student to adult, but there are 2 adults and they work on these projects for our kids. I can come back to you with more specifics on that. I'm sorry, I don't know that. Correct.
So it says that they worked with 181 freshmen, 226 sophomore students at Marysville-Pilchuck. And then I'm curious, I guess one of my questions was, it looks like this is project oriented, and like what sort of projects do they do? But also, I'll let you answer that because I have another question after that.
So clarify that question.
Well, it says that they deliver program services, rally for college programs, and then it says as necessary for group and project-based learning activities. So I'm curious what kind of projects they do. You don't know?
I don't have a specific, but I sure can bring that back for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess I'm curious about some of the data after, like, do they have numbers, what this 6-year partnership looks like how many students went or college or any of that kind of information would be nice to know too.
Absolutely.
And I think this is a great program and an opportunity for MP and our students there.
No, I just would echo a lot of your comments. I think maybe it's a good topic for a work study or maybe just a longer presentation from the team, just so we can have a better sense of what they're doing. But some of the stuff on here is great. I mean, going to be a lawyer for a day, exploring careers in healthcare, getting to visit T-Mobile opportunities. I think it's a wonderful way to expose students to just what is out there. So they have an idea of some of the opportunities for them. But I definitely would appreciate whether it's a presentation at a work study where folks come and talk about just the different opportunities, maybe at all three of the different high schools that kids have to prepare for career in college. That would be interesting to me, at least.
I know that these workers would be thrilled to come and talk to you about the work that they've done. So it would be an easy ask. They would love the platform to explain more and dive in.
Be great.
Yeah, I especially like the fact that there's no charge to the district, and I'm wondering
always good.
how many other programs like this or similar areas are there out there that we could be accessing right now, especially in our situation? I mean, this is the sort of thing that we should be trying to come up with, and I don't know if there's a mechanism in place to do research on that or to bring some of these more of these sort of things forward to us, but I don't see any downside to it.
Director Harris, you will see a number of these sorts of opportunities come forward to the board because we are always looking for things that are no cost to the district that benefit our children and families and staff. So there'll be more.
And I appreciate what Director Davis said when it comes to kind of the outcomes of things like this. This it looks like it's a 6-year partnership. I think I would invite an annual kind of status report, maybe highlight some of the successes. I think that would be good for a program like this. I mean, as Director Harris said, it's at no cost to the district, and so it's a major benefit for us. And I think it would be great to highlight kind of true Marysville examples of that benefit as time passes. That way, in 6 years when they come back, or I don't know if this is an annual renewal, but that way, when we make those decisions, we have kind of historical data that we can say, yeah, well, this was a good use of time, or maybe we can fill that time with something else. I think that would be good.
I would even highlight it's a great opportunity for us to know what the College Success Foundation does. That's a foundation that is put together to support students. So the more we know, the more we can reach out and say, thank you for what you're doing because they've chosen us, right? Lots of good schools out there to choose, but they stick with us.
Right.
Do we still have Avid at MP too, or is this like something that replaced Avid?
2 separate programs, but we do not
Okay.
run Avid anymore. That's a
was
cost saving.
Yep, because, yeah, sorry. I was curious if
No,
it
it's
was still, and
okay.
what's the difference?
This is very focused on post high school success. Avid had that component to it, but it also had that infusion in the classroom and learning around personal success skills, 21st century skills, those kinds of pieces, which are in here. But I would say this is more about infusing them to see what's out there, get their hands on it, and know how to access it.
Any other discussion from the board? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. And you're going to remain up at the podium. It's Vonnie Walker. Edgenuity License Agreement presented by Vonnie Walker, Executive Director of Secondary Schools.
Thank you. And I do want to present to this to the board, and I would also, before I get started, let you know that this has been run by our Financial Oversight Committee, and they did put a stamp of approval on this before this meeting today. So that's still up to you, but I know that was a question. I wanted to make sure you knew that they have looked at it and approved it. Okay, so I am asking for a renewal of our Edgenuity license agreement. This is a price quote for the purchase of continued access
for Marysville Getchell, Marysville Pilchuck, Legacy, and I would like to add Heritage High School to online content through Imagine Learning's Edgenuity platform. This is the platform that we use for students who are participating in credit retrieval courses. Credit retrieval allows students that have previously failed a class to take a reduced version of that class online. Students do a pre-assessment that identifies the gaps and what they need to learn for that course, and then tailors their instruction to fill those gaps, allowing students to focus in on the aspects of the course that they were unsuccessful in the first time. This allows, I'm going to kind of off script here, this allows for students to accelerate. So rather than having to retake a course from the beginning, and they have limited because they've fallen behind, they can pick up where they left off, finish, and continue to move on. The purchase of the 45 licenses means that between the 3 schools, 45 students may be logged on to the platform at any given one time. So these are multi-user licenses for our highest level of effectiveness. I would like to ask that you move to approve the purchase of 45 Edgenuity licenses from Imagine Learning.
All right, thank you very much. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the purchase of 45 Ingenuity licenses from Imagine Learning.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion?
If I can please share a couple of more numbers. So we had 495 students enrolled and they completed 282 half credits. There was a lot of use of the program for 45 licenses. So I just commend those building leaders and those students for the work they did recovering those credits. That's a lot of work and they did a great job.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion from the board?
Well, I think that I just want to say I appreciate us bringing forward opportunities for credit retrieval. I understand that it's at a cost to the district, but I mean, 495 students enrolling and using 45 licenses is a pretty good way to maximize the use of that and that funding. Because I think we have to think about all aspects of why a student might need to do credit retrieval. We don't know what all of our students are going through that might make them be behind in a course. And I think being a school district that does multiple tiers of types of interventions to ensure that our students succeed is really important. So I just want to say that this is something that I support so that we're able to ensure our students are moving forward and able to pick up when something might happen in life that's unexpected, where they might fall behind.
Just was going to ask, unless things have changed, I think if memory serves, it's a really tight timeline to get all those credits you need to graduate. I know some kids can get some things in middle school, but if you haven't done all of those things and you do miss on a class or two.
You have 24 chances to get 24 credits.
Yeah, it's kind of what I seem to
A little
remember,
tight.
which is really challenging because, you know, like Director Davis said, sometimes things happen
Life
in a
happens.
child's life. Life happens, exactly. So I appreciate kind of multiple opportunities for kids to engage and to catch up. And I'm assuming, I mean, kids are using this throughout the year, not just summertime or, you know,
Correct.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so it gives school counselors and others an opportunity to intervene essentially relatively early on and say, hey, you know, you might have missed that math class in 9th grade, but here's an opportunity for you to be able to catch up so you're on track. And again, having kind of the level of use for the number of licenses. Or we have so many kids, you know, that need to do it, but I'm glad that we have the opportunity.
Yeah, well, I understand and respect Mr. Hogan's comments on this. I know where he's coming from. I tend to agree with the other directors that there's, I think this directly affects kids. We said, you know, we're going to not, make sure that kids are taken care of first. And I think that this does that. My viewpoint on this has changed over the years. I used to be, well, you get what you deserve. You should have done your work in ninth grade or whatever, and not really taking into account all the things that kids have going on in their lives, the circumstances and things that many times is not through any fault of their own. I don't think it's like letting them off a hook. I think it's giving them a second opportunity. And which of us in life hasn't benefited from somebody giving us a second opportunity to make amends for what we did wrong? Or didn't do in the first place. So I think that it's something that we definitely need to provide for our kids, especially with the usage numbers.
If we don't provide Edgenuity or something like it, would the only resource students have to make up those credits be summer school?
No, so we have multi-tiered options. One of the things that we have in board policy that you've approved is mastery-based crediting. So that is one way that a student could make up a missed credit. For example, algebra is a year-long course. First semester, we call that Algebra 1A. If something happens, they aren't able to get a D or more in that class. If they continue on to Algebra 2 and are able to recover and then show proficiency in Algebra 1B, the second semester one, we have allowed mastery credit because it's a cumulative thing. So we have that built in for many of our classes. Not all of our classes can do that because they're not all year long or they may not build. During summer school, we not only have some students that access the Edgenuity platform, quite a few, but we do also have another tier of services that we do with direct instruction, direct online instruction, I should say, with the skeletal staff for some of those high core need areas.
I guess where I was going with that question, and it's probably still true, is if we don't spend the 43,000 here, we're going to spend it elsewhere to serve students who need to retrieve credit. And so I think having a multitude of options for students to retrieve credit is a good thing. I think OSPI sees it as a benefit also if they give us their blessing to move forward with this. So is there any other?
Sorry, I have one more comment or just like a thought. I know that with the migrant program, and a part of that program is they offer opportunity for credit retrieval, and just thinking about some of that funding. I know when my son had to do a credit retrieval class, I tried to figure out the migrant program funding because that was a part of he had that opportunity as somebody who fished for sustainability. He qualified for that. And so I never really was able to figure that out, but I'm just curious about the possibility of maybe some of that funding going towards this program with the students that we have in Marysville that are a part of the migrant program. Just a thought.
And let me clarify, it's that idea of we do get special pockets of money. We call it categorical funds for students that are furthest from justice or for some reason are not being successful. And absolutely, we can continue to explore other ways to offset those costs without, again, taking away from students, but we will continue to move forward with that. That would be good news.
Yeah, just a thought.
Absolutely, yes.
I think I appreciate Mike's comment about pay for play, kind of like what we said about sports, but I think the reality is in Marysville is we have a whole bunch of students, I don't know the percent, who are on free and reduced lunch. And I think for those students, we should, and I think we might have to pay for those students anyways. I don't know how much of an impact that would make. I think it's definitely worth looking into to see what if that's something that perhaps other districts have done in the past. But I do appreciate that comment and just trying to find ways to offset costs for the district. I think we should do that in every decision we make. Is there any other discussion from the board? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up, follow-up items, work study dates, board meeting dates, and upcoming events. September 16th, 2024, we have a work study and regular session meeting. Typically, the regular session meetings start at 6. Depending on what is within the work study, that'll determine the time. I think typically a work study starts at 5. All right, superintendent comments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our hearts go out to the students, families, and community members of Appalachia High School in Wyndham, Georgia. All of you are in our thoughts. Thank you.
All right, board comments.
Just want to say it's been great getting out to the schools. I appreciate the welcomes I've had at the places I've been to. I'm trying to get to every school, and I'm not quite there yet, but I'm going to make an effort. Also want to remind us all that Friday, first football games of the season, MP kicks off. Getchell is playing. There's also other students and other sports out there, cross country, volleyball, soccer. Get out and support our kids. Let show people how important sports are to this community. I know people were some of the letters have kind of scared people about, you know, what's going to happen with sports, and we need to show our support and say that, and let people know that that's not an option in Marysville, taking things away from our kids that are so important to them, to so many kids and so many families. So get out there, support our kids, cheer hard for them, and that's my bit.
Thank you very much.
I don't have a lot tonight. I wanted to thank you, Amy, for the work that you're doing, if she's still here, around unified activities at Getchell. I think that's just so positive for our kids and our community. And I'll come and find you. I'd love to help out with some of those events. And again, like Director Harris noted, great things are happening in our schools. It was really good to be at Grove and at Kellogg Marsh today and be in the classroom and see some of the excellent teaching that's happening, especially around literacy. There was some really wonderful things going on. And then yet just would echo the superintendent's comments. Our hearts go out to the families and students in Georgia.
I think, I know it, I don't know if Greg is still in here somewhere. He might be in the back over there, but not to call him out twice, but I would really appreciate, I think, a work study at some point to go over, I think Mr. Preston asked this question, but what we're doing to keep our kids safe. I think when tragic things happen, even in a different state, I think that all school districts have a duty to analyze what went wrong there, so that we can make sure that the same thing doesn't happen here. And I don't, you know, of course, our hearts go out to those families and those students. But again, in the spirit of being proactive, and I think that even that school and that community would want us to do this, is we should take that, learn from it as a district, and potentially build upon the measures that we're taking to keep our kids safe. I think that absolutely is priority number one, even above academics. We house our community's children in our schools, and we are responsible for their safety first and foremost. So I think it warrants a work study in the near future. I do appreciate everybody for coming out, coming early for the work study and staying late for the meeting. Again, I think if you go to our website, the questions that were posed in that app should be already on our website in the FAQ section. I personally need to do a better job at responding personally to those questions. It's been a busy week, but that's not an excuse for me. But if you haven't heard a response from your question, they should be posted on the website at the very least. I think we got really good use. We got very good use out of that app, out of that function. And I think it's something that we're going to use from here on out. I think it's a great tool. So, and then just a reminder, I know there's a lot been happening, but we do still have a vacant seat. I think information has been sent out and will continue to be sent out for that process, the process that we're going to take to fill that seat. So if you are interested, continue to be on the lookout. I think you can go to our website and find out more information as well as have an opportunity to apply through our website. So without that, kick it back over to you. I know you said you didn't have anything, but I want to give you an opportunity.
Sure. Up, Eliza Seedstop. Good evening, folks. My name is Eliza Davis, as you all know. And I was at work all day, so it saddens me to hear that there was another school shooting. And my heart and my thoughts and prayers go out to that community. As we all know, it's really close to home. And I just want to say thank you to all of the staff for the work that they did, getting our school year started, getting our kids back into the classroom. I too echo some of Greg's thoughts about student athletes and supporting. I think it is a good opportunity to bring our community out by getting out and showing support for those students in their on the field. Friday Night Lights, that's my thing. I'm there every Friday for MP. I'm sorry. I'm biased. I'm a Tomahawk. But anyways, I hear everybody's comments very loud and clear. And just I'm gonna continue to do me and continue to work hard for kids and students. And I feel like Marysville has a lot of work to do. I continue to say that. We need to be looking at hearing from our whole community in an equitable way, making sure that we're absolutely honoring this proclamation. We have a large population of Hispanic, Latinx students, and maybe we keep doing the work that we're doing, and one day we'll be able to see those partnerships and some of those faces in this room, representation of those students. I continue to try to advocate for the Tulalip students and our Native students and our Indian Ed parent committee to show their face in this room too, so that we hear their voices. I think it's very important that we continue to do work representative of all of our different demographics within our school district. And that's what I'm going to continue to do from this seat. I'm honored to be able to sit here and represent position 2. I feel strong about putting children first and representing all of our kids. So I'm just going to continue to do that. And hopefully we find ways to move forward. But again, I hear your comments. I wrote them all down. And oh yeah, Chad, I'm finished.
Thank you very much. It's going to conclude our regular session meeting. Actually, sorry, we're gonna jump into executive session. The Marysville School Board of Directors will meet in executive session following the regular session meeting for 1 hour, starting at 7:30 and ending at 8:30 to discuss pending litigation and future litigation. No action will be taken taken during or after the executive session. After we wrap up from the executive session, I will then come out here and adjourn. If we need more time in executive session, I'll come out here and voice that. So again, thank you everybody for coming out.